10 2020 games you didn't expect to be a big hit. Amongst other things, 2020 was a year known for its unsuspected gaming hits. The year was filled with the uprise of co-op as well as PvP multiplayer games, fueled by insatiable hunger to go out and meet people. 2020 brought out games that brought people together whilst being quarantined in the comfort of their homes. There, of course, were other titles as well that caught every game enthusiast by surprise. Once again, this list isn't in any specific order. The games that otherwise wouldn't do that well in other circumstances. Number 10, Valorant.
Phoenix, please tell me you have the package.
I would if somebody was a little less aggressive.
Now for those of you who are hardcore fans of the game, just hear me out. Everyone knows how similar the game looks to Overwatch. Some even call it a rip-off, but I for one am not one of those people. Valorant is a great game that deserves much more recognition. Essentially a tactical multiplayer shooter, Valorant really is a PvP team-based masterpiece. The game actually brings out the best of the genre. Although you can find similarities in art style and gameplay to many other shooters of the same genre, the game plays more like original Counter-Strike than anything else. It's like a modern Counter-Strike with a new skin. The objectives are the same. The offense team have to plant a spike or bomb in the enemy's territory, while the defensive team have to defend their base. It's a simple strategy that has worked for years on end. Valorant is free to play and only available on PC.
미안해서 어쩌나?
Up next at number 9, Desperados III.
Hey, darling.
The previous installation of Desperados, namely Desperados II: Cooper's Revenge, wasn't very well received amongst the purists of the series. It lacked the charm and overall gameplay of the first game. Cut to 2020 and they've made another classic. It took THQ Nordic 14 years to come out with the third entry in the series, and we're really glad they took their time with this one. The game is fantastic. It came as quite a surprise to everyone, as the series was initially acquitted in 2013, but the sudden change in decisions to revamp the series left a lot of the series fans confused. The initial reaction was slightly mixed. Many thought it wouldn't do well while others had hope. But eventually, as the game was announced, fans seemed to catch on to the hype train. Desperados, as a series, is well known for its tactical stealth RTS approach, and they stuck to their roots here. It doesn't pick up from the story of the previous games, but instead acts as a prequel to the series. Another must-play for this year. Desperados is now available on PS, Xbox, and PC. Number 8, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time.
But all it did was give me more time to plan your doom.
This one came out of nowhere. Although Activision and Toys for Bob brought the series out of retirement back in 2017 with the N trilogy, literally no one expected another Bandicoot game. Released in September of last year, the game is another fantastic display of art and gameplay, really setting the bar high for all platforming games. The game rated quite high as well with critics, earning top spot in many Game of the Year lists. The game is now available on PlayStation and Xbox. Moving on to number 7 with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. A reboot to the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skaters 1 and 2, this 2020 release from Vicarious Vision and Activision came as a bit of a surprise to many. The initial reactions of fans who thought the game wouldn't do well, and speaking from previous experiences, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater has not been of great value. The 2020 installation, on the other hand, is the complete opposite of what the fans had in mind. THPS 1+2 has to be one of the better games of last year. Developed on the Unreal Engine 4, the game actually looks really good, keeping a lot of its OG elements. There's a host of pro skaters to choose from in the game, while also a few wonky guest skaters like the infamous Roswell Alien and Jack Black as Officer Dick. It's really nice to see a much-needed reboot of this series, and a good one at that. THPS 1+2 is now available on PS, Xbox, and PC. Number 6, Ghost Runner.
Soon we'll climb back up to Dharma City and set humanity back on its path.
This game takes serious inspiration from Mirror's Edge. It's like a cyberpunk, Japanese Mirror's Edge kind of game. I don't know if that made sense to you, but Ghost Runner was judged hard for being a Mirror's Edge copy, and the game does seem similar, but it's very, very different. I think the best way to look at this is it's like a ninja parkour modern simulator, I guess? I don't know how to put it, but this game is awesome. From the art style to the gameplay, and the story as well, all elements fit perfectly into a fine box of colors. The game, I would say, shares a lot of likeness to Ninja Gaiden and Metal Gear Rising more than anything, and it's safe to say that this does a great job in protecting a true ninja assassin experience. Ghost Runner is now available on all platforms.
All Dharma City residents should remain indoors for their own safety.
Number 5, South of the Circle.
Hey, come on, wake up! Wake up! It's broken.
Shifting slightly away from the mainstream onto titles that were released just left of center, South of Circle is courted to be one of the best narrative adventure games for Apple Arcade. State of Play developed this 2020 release, and it has been very well received amongst users of Apple Arcade, as well as all gaming enthusiasts. This is the kind of game that makes you want to get Apple Arcade. South of Circle is visually very pleasing as it's similar to art concepts from retro animation styles and has a very minimalistic approach. This title has to be one of the hidden gems of last year. South of the Circle is only available on Apple Arcade.
Our only hope is for you to find a friendly out there. If you don't do this, we're both done for. You hear me?
Up next with number 4, Streets of Rage 4. Streets of Rage 4 is a beat-em-up style game developed by Dotemu, Lizard Cube, and Guard Crush Games. It's a continuation of Sega's Streets of Rage series, and for those of you who didn't know, Streets of Rage 1 was released way back in 1991. So the series literally has been around for 30 years. Streets of Rage 4 is a very well-made addition to the series, with gameplay elements that have a modern touch but keep its original characteristics intact. A tribute to the classic from years back, the game art style is very reminiscent of the old Street Fighter era. The gameplay is also pretty much the same, only adding new elements to its mechanics and tweaks with the animations. Another addition to the list of the hidden gems of last year. The game is available on PC, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. Moving on to number 3, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. This game was such a hit during the first stages of the pandemic, helping players kill time during the lockdown. Streamers from all over the globe were at it with this game, and why wouldn't they? The game is so simple. Essentially a platformer, Fall Guys is a multiplayer battle royale style game developed by Devolver Digital. The basic objective of the game is to be the last one standing, without any guns or warfare, but through game show-like events where obstacles are constantly trying to knock you off. Hence the title, Ultimate Knockout. See what they did there? Never mind, that was a bad joke. The game's art has fun written all over it, adding a whole plethora of colors and characters with a very family-fun approach to it. It can be very comfortably played by all ages, and the multiplayer mode brings out the whole charm of the game. Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout is now available on PS4, Android, and PC. Up next at number 2, Among Us. Talk about a super hit. Among Us was actually released back in 2018, but nobody really knew about it. Not a lot of people were playing the game, until the pandemic hit, which propelled this PvP multiplayer into stardom. If you haven't heard of Among Us, well then I really suggest you get out there and play the game. The game's objective, once again, is simple. According to the number of players, there can be 1 or 2 killers on a spaceship that all the players are on. The objective of the killers is to not act suspiciously and sabotage the different parts of the ship, while also seamlessly killing the other members of the crew. It's the rest of the crew's job to figure out who the killers are and throwing the suspected killers out of the ship. Fun game, but requires a lot of skill. The best addition to this game is calling the board meeting, where players actually talk over call to decide who the killer really is. This game was such a super hit, even though it wasn't even released last year. Among Us is available on iOS, PC, Android, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox. And finally, our number 1 pick, Genshin Impact.
As you set off on your journey once again, you must remember that the journey itself has meaning.
This free-to-play, open-world, role-playing extravaganza was first seen as a direct copy of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and to be really honest, it looks uncannily similar. Genshin Impact came as a surprise to many, as the game actually started to pique the interest of many gamers on the internet. It's now safe to say that the game is wonderful. Chinese developers MiHoYo kept adding elements into the game that really brought out the best. Although a lot of its art style has been inspired by Breath of the Wild, Genshin Impact created several different boundaries in physics, objectives, and gameplay amongst the 2 games. The free-to-play element also adds a different dimension to the game. The game eventually was very well received by critics and gamers all over, and the developers are still adding new elements into the game that you really should check out. The game is free to play on PS4, Switch, iOS, Android, and PC, as well as a buyout edition, which is also available on the same platforms.
With a performance, will you believe me?
Time for takeoff!
Sacred name, Fortune Preserver.
One step closer.